Hello and welcome back to the Nothing But Net podcast, the podcast for triple net commercial real estate investing. I'm your host, Adam Carswell, joined as always by our co-host, Michael Flight, CEO of Liberty Fund. And we are joined today by the legend himself, Brett Swarts, the founder of Capital Gains Tax Solutions. And I know we really have been looking forward to this one for a while, Michael. I know Brett has just been on fire lately from a thought leadership perspective, but also just as a good guy. So I'm happy that you went out there and sourced him. And yeah, any other context for today's interview, Michael, before we dive in with Brett?
Well, I met Brett. I'm sorry, I'm going to get his name wrong the entire interview. So, because I just am not clicking on the name, but I met Brett at the Intelligent Investors Real Estate Conference in Manhattan Beach, California this past year. And he just blew my mind because we in the triple net lease space are used to talking about DSTs, and DSTs are Delaware statutory trusts. And Brett started talking about being able to exchange crypto, highly appreciated properties and businesses into a DST, but it's not a Delaware statutory trust. It is a really cool method of maximizing your cash flow and minimizing taxes. So Brett can explain this way better than I can, but I just wanted to say, really excited about this. So if people are looking to sell, this is one of the things, I think it's the holy grail of, there's a lot of people out there with crypto gains right now. And since you and I are involved with the Blockchain Real Estate Summit coming up in September 23rd and 24th in Austin, Texas, we are working with a lot of people that are in crypto and also in real estate. So Brett is the perfect guy to bring on to the Nothing But Net podcast because he also is one of the premier real estate brokers. What's the name of the company again, Brett? Because it's
two companies, Capital Gains Tax Solutions, and then I'm also a multifamily broker with EXP Commercial and specialize in multifamily investments here in Sacramento. But one leads into the other, and one comes from the other. So there's synergy there for all of our clients and investors.
Right, but EXP Commercial is one of the fastest growing commercial real estate companies in the world right now. So Brett can get into a little bit more about that too. But Adam, with that, why don't you start it off?
Right, and I was going to say the other thing that makes Brett a perfect guest for the Nothing But Net podcast, I thought you were going to say, is he is a former college basketball player as well, and got to give credit and shout outs where all that is due as a fellow former athlete myself. So Brett, welcome to the Nothing But Net podcast. And to break the ice here, I know we said you're in
I've got two Basketball Jones guys on the podcast, the Nothing But Net podcast today.
Michael, you've met Michael Jordan before in Chicago, so there you go. But yeah, Brett, just briefly, I guess, tell us a little bit about your journey, your story. How did you end up in Sacramento, and yeah, really what's leading you up until this moment here on today? Absolutely.
I'll start with basketball on this one. Usually I just start with other stuff, but since this is Nothing But Net, we'll start with that. So I fell in love with hoops and working with teams and sports at a very young age, and had a chance to take and play mainly football and basketball in high school, but then take basketball on a scholarship at a small private school. Started at Point Loma as a walk-on down in San Diego, for those who are wondering, NAI Division I at the time. And then went to a place called William Jessup University up in Sacramento. It's NAI Division II. So during that journey, though, I had a chance to take an internship at a place called Marcus & Millichap. And for those who don't know, that's a commercial real estate brokerage company specializing in multifamily is what I did. They have all different product types. And I learned from some of the best in the business. This was like 2006, and things were going really well, really excited. Also part of the journey growing up with my parents in the Bay Area, we did we bought rentals, we purchased land, developed properties, mostly single family homes all throughout the Bay Area, Silicon Valley. So I fell in love with the sticks and bricks of real estate at a young age. Didn't know I would do it full time in brokerage or tax deferral or doing 1031 exchanges with clients, but that is what kind of led, planted the seeds to lead to 2006. And so things were going really well. I'm really excited. I'm new in the business, but I'm making, next to nothing, because that's part of what happens in the beginning. You're just learning and kind of just growing. And But the market's really hot, and I started to get some momentum going, and all of a sudden something happens, and that's a 2008 crash. And I don't know if you guys remember that time. And I don't know if you've ever been so afraid, you're not sure how you're going to provide for your family. And well, that was my journey. I went from being very successful in high school and college and scholarships and basketball and team sports and team captain and all that stuff, and to all of a sudden I'm in the real world. And not only that, but I'm married and our baby's on the way. And people are saying, now you've got to go get a real job, right? And I'm going, no, I love commercial real estate. I love multifamily properties. I love everything I'm learning about it. I'm going to stick it through. But that required us to do some adjustment. And part of that adjustment was moving with my brother into a small condo. So I remember sitting down with my wife, Melanie, and going, hey, like, this is the reality. Like, we have only so much money. We got some debt that's piling up. We can move with my brother. I can go get a real job. Or get like a side hustle. And so that's what we did. I moved my brother to a small condo. I get a side hustle, a place called Cheesecake Factory. And so by days, I'd work at Marcus & Millichap, cold call, negotiating with banks, helping my clients go through their challenges they were working through. And at nights, I work at Cheesecake Factory, worked about 60, 70-hour weeks, 7 days a week, and did that for about 2 years.
I need to know what you were doing with Cheesecake Factory.
I was a server, so I was selling cheesecake. So basically, selling food and getting tips.
I'm going to interject. So the 2008 crash was my fourth stock market crash, and pretty much my around my third real estate crash. But when I started out in real estate brokerage, I was still living at home, so I had to pay my mother rent. And so I had to get a job at Domino's Pizza. And then when myself and my partner started our company, Concordia Realty, back in 1990, we both were delivering newspapers to news boxes when they still had like newspaper boxes. So we'd have to get up probably around 4 a.m. to do that, and then come into the office and try and drum up some business. So
that's exactly right, and that's what I found myself. I felt like I was like Clark Kent, right? But I'd had the same tie on at Marcus & Millichap, and I would like just jump in the car, quickly change into my cheesecake outfit, but I'd keep the same tie. I didn't have to untie it. I just had to unloosen it and put it on a different shirt. But I'd come in, and at one point, there's a client that I'm trying to get a $3.5 million listing who's in the other room. I'm like, oh my gosh, if he sees me there, there's no way I'm getting this listing. At least that was in my mind, right? Which is probably true. Like, you don't want the guy who's nights and weekends. So it was a tough part of our journey, but it also is an opportunity for us to grow. And during this journey, I learned about something called a deferred sales trust. And part of why I was so attracted to it was because my clients were losing half, some were losing everything within a 3-year period. And part of what we identified was that the 1031 exchange is not always your friend, right? It's not always your friend. In fact, that's part of why I like some triple net deals that are credit tenants, that are backed by huge corporations that can protect and preserve wealth, versus just overpaying for properties like multifamily all the time. They don't make a lot of sense. In fact, one client in particular, he had a $50 million portfolio and he was leveraged 70-80%. And he was a value add guy, and we sat down with him, and this is like early 2007, and we were saying, hey, now's a good time to sell. Now, at this point, we didn't know about the deferred sales trust, but he said, guys, I don't want a 1031. I've already 1031 into this, and I don't want to get stuck in overpaying. Well, fast forward, he goes to lose everything in the next 3 years. He lost $50 million worth of real estate. He lost his house. He went bankrupt. And we're assessing like the damage and picking up the pieces and going, what went wrong? And part of what it was people were overpaying via the 1031 exchange and weren't being smart, had too much debt, not enough liquidity, right? Enter the deferred sales trust. My manager brings in a gentleman who's now my business partner to speak on this. And he sat there telling us this thing, and we're going, this sounds too good to be true. We thought we were like the Navy SEALs of commercial real estate and 1031 exchanges. But what he's saying,
you were telling me this, Brett, I got to interrupt you. When you were telling me about this, I'm like, this really, really sounds too good to be true, because it's like, again, the holy grail is, let's just 1031 and, extend, swap till you drop. So, but go on, Brett. I interrupted you, but yeah,
no, you're right. It's exactly what we thought, and that's where we were. And we literally, there's like 30 of us sitting in a room at Marcus and Millichap, and my manager brings the gentleman in, right? And he's telling us this stuff. And this gentleman, by the way, he's a big sports guy too. He played for the 49ers. He went to Utah Utes. He was a lineman. He's just really, really smart. And the tax attorney is like the brain surgeon. He created it. But the point of all that was he's telling us this thing, and we were skeptical. We were cautious. Is it too good to be true? How do we know this thing is legal? What deals are being done? And we're very transactional type of nature in commercial real estate, or real estate in general. So we wanted to see all of the evidence and the facts. And I'm more of the tortoise and the hare, although I can speak fast now. But I'm sitting there going, okay, if this is true and this is real, this will change real estate. But I'll just start to learn about it because I'm not a CPA, I'm not a tax attorney, right? But I said, I'll be open to this. If this can solve the problem of my clients, I'm open to it. And at the end of the day, guys, that's really what we're here for. We're not in the business of selling real estate or tax deferral or triple net deals or all these different things. We're in the business of solving people's problems. And to the extent we can do that and add value is to the extent that we help unlock things for others and we can get paid to do that.
Preserving and generating wealth is the big thing, because the biggest thing is financial freedom is upstream of political freedom and all other freedoms.
Absolutely. And so I started to just talk about it. I literally use it as an interest generator. I would just call people and say, hey, here's this thing. And they'd say, someone would laugh at me, hang up on me. Right? Someone would say, well, that's interesting. Talk to my CPA. Someone would say, I'll do the deal if my CPA and tax attorney says yes. But in every single time that people actually engaged and got with the team and had open-minded enough to see if it was real, it kept saying, oh my gosh, you guys have something very special. Now it's proprietary and it's protected, and we keep it that way for a couple of reasons. One, we don't want competition, but two, we don't want anyone to take it, abuse it, and mess it up for all of us. But so fast forward, I start to get some traction and my business starts to grow. I'm thinking outside the box. I'm competing with brokers that have been in the business for 20, 30 years longer than me. And I'm starting to get the meetings with these ultra high net worth opportunities and clients that own multifamily real estate. And to the extent my business starts to grow, and all of a sudden, fast forward, I wasn't planning on it. They asked me to become a trustee, and that's part of my role at Capital Gains Tax Solutions. I was able to retire from the Cheesecake Factory. I was able to keep my wife home full time. We have 5 children now, and I'm on this side of the dream. But I always share the other part of it because it was not easy, right? It was painful. It was frustrating. It was embarrassing at times. And now I'm on this side, and yeah, we can touch on the next part, guys.
All right, Adam, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I think on this journey that Brett has been on, in many ways, he has been and continues to be a pioneer. So I guess just from a high level, working our way in here, what are some of the common FAQs that you run into, Brett? It sounds like maybe even on like the legal side of things, or is this real? What?
Well, one thing I really just want to stress is the fact that, in everything, you get setbacks and it's overcoming. It's, maybe doing a workaround, maybe doing something less than what you think you are. I've seen people that don't have any skills at all and will not take an internship or will not, take a job at McDonald's or something like that. And I think we just need to see from Brett's life that, you're never too good if there's, things, crisis is popping up. It's like, take the job, move on to survive, and then you do the workaround and then come out much more successful in growth.
Yeah, I could agree with you more, right? And that's a blessing, right? It's a real blessing now, and now I can share that story. For a long time, I wouldn't share the story. I was embarrassed about the Cheesecake Factory, right? But now it's like I share the story because hopefully it gives some people some inspiration out there that if you have something that you believe can change the lives of your clients or your friends or your family, keep pushing through, keep finding a way, be creative, think outside the box. Yeah, put your blinders on and just keep pressing forward and be humble enough to do whatever it takes. And by the way, Cheesecake Factory is an amazing company, amazing corporation. I'm grateful for the 2 years I had with all of the folks. It helped me to get better customer service, great training, ways to serve people in a better way. So it all kind of fits together, right? So by no means is this a knock on Cheesecake Factory, but for where I was and my expectations in my head, I had to reassess. And my wife enough to be patient enough with me, right? To say, you have 2 degrees and a minor, and you studied in all this success, like be willing to have, and that's also I tell her, I know she didn't marry me for my money because I didn't have any, guys. So,
well, and you can also use me to stand on my shoulders and say, at least I didn't have to work for Domino's or as a newspaper boy. So, like Michael Fly.
For sure. So who is this for? I think it's the first question to get back to your point, Adam. So that's the first thing. Like, who is this for? Well, anybody who's selling a highly appreciated asset that has at least $1 million net proceeds and $1 million gain. Okay, $1 million net proceeds and $1 million gain. So that's net of all closing costs and net of all commissions and any debt. So you have $1 million net proceeds, $1 million gain. We find that to be a 10 out of 10, a home run every time. Okay, for the deferred sales trust, given the fees, given the complexity of setting everything up.
$1 million in equity proceeds.
Yeah, $1 million net proceeds and $1 million net gain, like capital gain, right? Okay. And so if you have those two things, you're great. Now, if you have two assets, let's say some cryptocurrency and a real estate, one deal, right, that you can combine, then that can also equal $1 million. But we don't like to see more than that because then the complexities of the closing create too much cost. Unless you have like 20 cryptocurrencies, and that's really simple. You can push a button on 20 of them, and we can do that quickly. So that is the part of why crypto is so attractive, is that you have the ability to make quick transactions with not a lot of friction in between to have to close certain things, okay? So it also works for primary homeowners, okay? We just did an $8.3 million deal in Palo Alto for a primary homeowner. Remember, the 1031 exchange doesn't work for primary homeowners. It works for business owners, okay? Tech companies, public or private stock, investment real estate. We already said cryptocurrency, Bitcoin. We've done Ethereum, Bitcoin cases. It works for NFTs. It works for artwork collectibles. Remember, the 1031 exchange only works for investment real estate. It doesn't work for anything beyond investment real estate. And so, again, as commercial real estate folks, one thing to change our perspective is there's a lot of other capital. In fact, there's a study done by the American Bankers Association that says that about and a bunch of other associations have done studies, about $32 trillion is going to pass from the baby boomers to the millennials in the next 20 years. And this is known as the largest wealth transfer in the history of the planet. That's 32 trillion, okay? And 50% of the total net worth, let me back up too. There's 10,000 baby boomers in the US every single day turning 65, and there's 77 million baby boomers, okay? So it's a huge amount of wealth that's going to transfer, and 50% of that total wealth in the U.S. is tied to three asset types: commercial real estate, high-end primary homes, and private equity, which is businesses, all of which are highly appreciated for a lot of baby boomers, and only one is actually qualified for a 1031. The other two don't qualify for the 1031. So you look at this massive problem, this massive challenge, and so the question is, how do we defer what? Well, the tax is somewhere between 25 and 50%. You say 50%, how, Brett? Well, it's depreciation recapture, and it's depending on what state you're in. Like California, for example, is 13.3% state, and there's 3.8% Obamacare tax, and then there's 20% federal, and then you have depreciation recapture, which can add up to 3, 5, 10, 15%.
I went to a public school, so I don't do math. So one of these, states like California, that's like 45%.
37% minimum, okay, for investment property, and then you add depreciation recapture, and that's how it can start to go up depending on how long you've owned it for, okay? And so that's the challenge we're trying to solve for. And so how do we defer the capital gains tax, right, without having to suffer the time consequences or the restrictions of the 1031, enter the deferred sales trust? So we close about a deal a week these days. We just did a $12 million deal in San Diego for a car wash dealership. And the best analogy I have for you guys is really two. Is the first one is like in a Rubik's Cube, right? You see this Rubik's Cube has all the different colors on it. And people show up to us with these different situations with maybe their partners that they want to separate. Maybe they want to retire. Maybe they want to get a new depreciation schedule. Maybe they even want to get estate tax elimination, right? Whereas the 1031 exchange, it only does capital gains tax in the stepped up basis, which is what you said earlier, Michael. Swap until you drop, and then you get the stepped up basis, which is an amazing strategy, by the way. We love that here at Capital Gains Tax Solutions, right? However, guess what? Maybe you don't want to hold on to that property with rent control and eviction control and new landlord laws and you want your time and your energy freedom, because it's one thing to have financial freedom, but it's another thing to have location freedom entrepreneurial freedom, right? And stress, kind of like stress freedom, right? So how do you become more passive and more active in the things you want to be doing? And so part of our job is just to try to make this a Rubik's Cube congruent, right? And this, for those who can't see this, is a different Rubik's Cube that I literally just solved in about 10 seconds. And I didn't really do it. It's a different one. But all of the colors are the same.
Whereas good because it went down and then it went up. So it's like, you can tell how smart Brett is by how fast he can do a Rubik's Cube. So.
And by the way, it's never perfect, guys, right? I mean, it's not a one size fits all, right? And part of our goal at Capital Gains Tax Solutions is trying to get as many sides congruent for you in your life and get your freedom. Because at the end of the day, we're in the business of solving problems. And so we just do assessments all day. We just say, hey, you know what, Adam, Michael, 1031 might be the best situation for you. In fact, if it is, we're going to let you know. We're not going to charge you anything for letting you know. But the deferred sales trust might be even better. And keep an open mind. Let's do a side-by-side comparison. So draw a line down the piece of a paper. And let's walk through this, okay? You remember 2008? Yeah. Well, I had some clients that lost a lot, and maybe you did too. Yeah, I remember that. And so do you think it's a good time to sell or buy? Well, probably mostly people are going to say good time to sell. Maybe you can find a deal, needle in a haystack. And by the way, if you can, great. We're a backup plan for a failed 1031 exchange as long as you're working with qualified intermediaries that we strategically align with that allow you to, that will accommodate, okay? Because guess what? There's 1031 exchange brokers and intermediaries that don't want you to know about this. In fact, they're in the business of keeping you in the transactions. And I understand that because I'm a California real estate broker. Sold over $100 million of real estate, and that's part of why we get these huge commissions, okay? And I'm still doing 1031s with clients if that's what they want. But the point is not for me to decide what they want. The point is to provide the options and the alternatives and let them decide. And sometimes it's a partial Delaware statutory trust, sometimes a partial 1031, a partial deferred sales trust. There's all these different solutions, but most qualified intermediaries either don't know about it or don't want you to know about it. So make sure you're working with us and with the qualified intermediaries that do. So that's one thing. The other thing would be cryptocurrency, which is huge, right? People want to exit these highs and these lows. Now, I think Bitcoin hit another low yesterday at 30,000. I'm not sure where it's at today, but it was at $69,000 just I think 4 or 5 months ago, right? And now it's crashed down to 30. Well, what if you could have sold high, diversified into real estate? By the way, you can do that with cryptocurrency. In fact, we had a client, she bought Bitcoin at about $30,000 to $50,000. She worked for a big tech company. And she exited that crypto when it was at $54,000 a coin, which was up $50 million was her value. Now she only exited $5 million of the 50, but think about that, guys. That's like about a 49 and change gain, $1 million gain. That's huge. In California, that's about 37%. So she's able to exit and defer. But you have thoughts on that, Michael?
No, I think that the strategy, take something off the table, put it into something stable. And then the other strategy is if you put your Bitcoin gains, you put your cryptocurrency gains into real estate, you can then dollar cost average back into cryptocurrency or Bitcoin. And so, you preserve your highs and you just keep going.
And you nailed it. And that's one of the components of the deferred sales trust is diversification, right? And liquidity and what's called optimal timing, dollar cost averaging when it makes sense. And so literally she exited $5 million, deferred about $1.85 million of tax. And for her, she wanted some entrepreneurial freedom, which you weren't probably wondering what that was before. Well, that's basically being able to use the capital that you have to fund your venture at your own timing, tax deferred. That's the freedom of that. So instead of having to incur that about $2 million of tax, she's able to take $4 of the $5 million and put it into a tech startup company with her college roommate, and no longer work for the W-2 building the tech company's dream. She's building her own dream, right? She's retired from one with the other.
Right there, because so you can use the deferred. What's the deferred trust again?
Deferred sales trust. Yeah, the funds inside of there.
Trust. Yeah. To invest in your own business. This
absolutely
so dynamic because I know so many people that have a big chunk of what they were doing in a 401k or in a self-directed IRA and things, and you cannot invest in your own business. So this is so super cool because you can take some of those gains that you've got, put it into this, and then invest in your own startup too. That's
Absolutely. And let me give you one other one too. A client of mine, he sold a $2.6 million business in Alabama, and his dream was to exit his business on the front end with two partners, but start a new business venture, which was multifamily development. And so with the trust funds he partnered with and another partner, they're building, and they've built 72 units in Tennessee, of which they're exiting that as well, moving all the funds into the trust. And they're going to go do it again. They want to build like 300 units in Alabama and in Huntsville. And they're just going to just rinse, wash, repeat. So I want you to think about this like Netflix is the other analogy I want you to have versus Blockbuster. Blockbuster is the 1031. It's restrictive. It's 45 days to identify, 180 days to close. It has the equal or greater value rules. It has the like kind rules. Or even like an IRA is like Blockbuster too, because like you're saying, or self-directed 401k, it can't be in your own businesses, right? Whereas the thing called Netflix came out and it's very flexible, right? You don't have to return it within 3 days. You don't have the 45-day. You have no like-kind requirements. You don't have to equal or greater debt replacement or equal or greater value replacement. You can literally invest the funds into stocks, bonds, mutual funds, triple net properties, single-family rentals, ground up development, hard money lending. So you can take all of that capital, and this is where we think is so crucial with optimal timing, sell at a high, pay off all your debt, and now you're liquid, you're diversified, and your powder is dry, ready to pounce on these deals. Because guess what, guys? These people are buying properties at 3 and 4 caps that have not a lot of upside. They're going to lose these properties. It might take a year or 2 or 3 for it to flush out, but that's where we want to be positioned with our clients to purchase it at a discount, because we've already been through this. Now, I don't think it'll be like 2008 all over again, but it'll be something of that manner where there's people that are hurting, and you can come in when the iron is hot and strike, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. And Brett, it's a good thing that you're working with a lot of baby boomers, because they'll understand the Blockbuster versus Netflix. But if you talk to Adam, he doesn't know what a Blockbuster is.
I think I might have rented a few Nintendo 64 video games from Blockbuster before it had its day. But one thing I think that it seems like you might deal with, Brett, and I'd like to know your take on this one. And I'm sure there's a variety of answers, but one thing that might stop an individual from even pursuing this option or working with you might be their lack of knowing how long it might take to go through this whole process and get set up. So I know there's, as you mentioned, a Rubik's Cube of different scenarios, but could you give a general, analysis of what going through this process looks like from a time investment perspective? Absolutely.
Great question. And so we have an entire transaction coordination team that works with your escrow company, work with your broker, works with you to gather documents, gather what we need. And so we try to honestly make it as seamless as possible for you. There's typically a first consultation call for about 30 minutes with myself or one of my team members, and we're just discussing your particular deal and see if you qualify, right? Number 2 would be about an hour call with the tax attorney, my business partner, and maybe even your CPA to come in and clarify it's legal, it's legit, it works, all those kind of things. And then from that point, you just kind of give us access to your team, your M&A attorney, if you're selling a business. For cryptocurrency, we're going to set up a Kraken account in the name of the trust. But I would say there's about maybe, let's say 5 hours of real work that spending some time with us, and then we can close deals within a week. In fact, we just closed the deal. It was in about 3 weeks against the San Diego car wash sale, $12.7 million sale. It was 4 partners. 3 of them decided to use the deferred sales trust. 1 of them decided to pay the tax, which is also a cool component of this. The whole entity didn't have to move like a 1031 did. They were already going to pay the tax anyways. Go ahead, Michael.
Interrupt you on that. So
yeah,
each partner gets their own DST trust then, correct?
Correct. Yeah,
okay.
So you can separate. Yeah, each family unit. So each married couple and each, or single person, they have their own. Every trust only does business with them. It's a brand new EIN. And it's never commingled with other accounts, never commingled with any other trust accounts. It's just they're the sole creditor of this, which is also something we should probably cover. Like, how does this thing work, right? And essentially what it is where I can carry back paper. If Adam wanted to buy my property tomorrow, I could carry back paper for him, meaning I become the lender. He could put a down payment on, and that's called a seller carryback. Well, the difference is I say, Adam, I'm not going to carry back for you. Go get a loan, go get the full cash, and I'm just going to carry back for a trust. And the trust is ultimately going to sell it to you, and that's what creates the tax deferral. It's just a seller carryback. It's based upon IRC 453. So you already probably know what that is, right? Think of it like a qualified intermediary. We can send the funds to a qualified intermediary, and that's what defers the capital gains tax. It defers what's called constructive or actual receipt. And so we're not a 1031, we're an installment sale, but we use it with a third-party trust. And my role is a third-party trustee. We work with the tax attorneys. And so literally we do these so often, and it's so common. People know 1031s exchanges because there's 5,000 companies out there. There's basically one company, one law firm that's doing this. And there's some copycats out there, so be careful. You want to make sure you have the lifetime audit defense and you're with the people that have created it, which is the people that we work with.
What is the lifetime audit defense, Brett? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so one of the biggest questions to ask is, what's going to happen if I get audited? Like this sounds amazing, Brett. If it all works, but who's going to defend me if the IRS comes knocking on my door, state or federal? And the answer is the tax attorneys who created it, the law firm who created it. And they have a perfect track record, by the way. It's not just enough to have that. You want to make sure that the surgeon has performed the ACL surgeries before, he's by the way, I had 2 ACL surgeries for those basketball players out there. You want to make sure they're the ones that can perform really well, and not just well, but perfect. They've never had a single negative result, tens of thousands of tax returns for these trusts, and over a dozen no change IRS audits, including 3 formal audits. So they're batting 1,000. So if the state or federal government comes knocking your door asking about this transaction, they will defend at no additional charge. So that's what lifetime audit defense is, Michael.
Okay. And you had some people that were pretty big people and pretty serious people investigate this, that had a lot of money and go through that. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because I think a lot of people are probably still in the back of their mind, like I was saying, this is too good to be true.
Yeah, and in fact, the story that I like to share, who's now become a friend of mine, is a gentleman, and was one of our strategic alliances, David Young. And David Young ran with a gentleman and partnered with a gentleman named Bill Gross. And Bill Gross and David Young built a company called PIMCO. And PIMCO is one of the largest money managers in the world. In fact, they manage some of the biggest wealth in the entire world, pension funds, sovereign wealth, like just huge amount of wealth. And they built PIMCO from 80 billion to 1.2 trillion over about a 15-year period of time. Those 2 guys and about 4 other guys on their leadership team. Well, they all get a big payday. They all kind of retire for a short period of time. But David and those 4 other guys form a group called Antelope Capital, actually out of Irvine, California. And if you can imagine, these guys are getting approached with a lot of people wanting them to sell their tax deferral strategy, their new thing, their thing that can help all of their clients. A lot of people are vetting for them to for a platform to talk to their clients. So David gets approached with the deferred sales trust about 4.5 years ago. And like most people, they're skeptical and they're cautious. But David is an economist. He's a money manager, securities professional, and he's in the business of basically doing due diligence on businesses and stocks and investments and kind of predicting the economy. Very smart guy. He also has a legal team that makes sure that they're doing all things properly. Okay, so they say, sure, we're open to the deferred sales trust. Let's take a look at it. If you guys say this is everything you're saying it to be, and they don't do a 2-day due diligence or a 2-week or a 2-month, they do a 2-year due diligence of meeting with the tax attorneys, talking with the clients, talking with the banks, having their legal team review it. And they fly back and they meet with my business partner, the tax attorney, to go through this like on a whiteboard for 2 days with their entire legal team. And after those 2 days, this is the culmination of everything. They come back with 2 conclusions. Number 1, that might be the smartest person we've ever met, which is a big statement for these guys because these guys are really smart. Okay.
And to tell you how smart they are, they sold out because they were the world's top bond manager and bond fund managers, and bonds in the coming years are more than likely going to get crushed. So they sold out at the top.
Yeah, these guys are brilliant, right? And so number 2, they said we're all in on the deferred sales trust. In fact, they became a part of the DST inner circle, and they say we will manage money. Typically have like a $5 million minimum or so, but we'll manage any account for any deferred sales trust client as it will support the financial advisors, because we do work with thousands of financial advisors across the country where they can provide it for their clients. They can manage the money, and they can be like an overarching advisory team to provide some other investments as well. And so what I always say to people that are skeptical, and you should be skeptical because your CPA hasn't told you about it, and you've been trusting that person for 5, 10, 15, 20 years to help you build your wealth from 1 to 10 to 50 million to $100 million. And they helped you do all of that, right? But guess what? There might be a better way. Those same people who brought you to those numbers may not be the people to bring you to the next level. And that's where I say, if it's good enough for David Young and his legal team, after 2 years, he manages some of the biggest money in the world, 2 years of due diligence. Is it good enough for me, Michael, Adam, and whoever's listening to this, right? And you can literally go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com and watch the video of David telling his whole story. We call it Overcoming the False Beliefs with the Deferred Sales Trust, right? His entire story, his journey to his false beliefs with the Deferred Sales Trust and how it was overcome. So hopefully that answers the question, Michael.
And your website is capitalgainstaxsolutions.com?
Correct.
Okay. And we're going to have that in the show notes as well. But if somebody wants to go see it's Bill Young, correct?
So it's so Bill Gross with David Young. So Bill Gross, most people know the Bill Gross name, like Ray Dalio, Bill Gross. These are like worldwide known. David was his right-hand guy, right? Yeah. And David Young is a part of the team.
At the capitalgainstaxsolutions.com website.
Yep, you can go there. Yep, or YouTube channel. You can search David Young, Brett Swarts. We have about 5 or 6 videos on there.
Okay, fantastic.
Brett, what would you say? Because I'm sure you get a lot of questions as well about we talked about it, but like the legality, is the safe, etc. So as far as legitimate threats to this approach, what would you say that maybe you actually would be paying most attention to ensure that from a legal perspective, or just any threats to the business, what are you doing to prevent against whatever threat there might be out there, if there are any that you could elaborate on?
Yeah. So recently the 1031 exchange in Congress, they were floating around with taking it away, and we're thankful it was not taken away, but it is under threat. The good news of the Deferred Sales Trust is
still even mentioning that he wants to restrict it to 500,000 or something now. So.
Yeah, exactly. So it's under threat. It's been under threat, but it seems like, at least for right now, it's paused again, or it's kicked the can down the road here. It didn't seem like it's imminent right now, as it was a year ago. We were all really concerned that it was going to be eliminated or just restricted to 500,000. But the point is, the Deferred Sales Trust is a separate tax code, IRC 453, not IRC 1031. And so it's not even on the radars that we know of, and we're constantly monitoring this. Part of why we believe that's the case, and we believe this is actually a win-win for the IRS, and this is really important to understand, is that if Michael has $100 million of Bitcoin, right, that tomorrow could be worth 60 million, and he's able to exit at a high, defer the tax, and employ it into multifamily housing to help create housing for people, incentivize him to do that. Like, he can't force Michael and Adam to go build, or Brett to go build these multifamily housing, but they can give us tax incentives to do these types of things, right? And so part of the nature of the Deferred Sales Trust is the funds must be invested into something that's not a personal property like a primary home, right? But it can certainly be Michael's investment property to build housing, right? And to stimulate economic growth.
As you said, that entrepreneur, client of yours, she's starting another tech company, and so this really just helps, the United States. This just helps, communities, because it creates additional capital to create jobs, to create additional wealth, and it's just good for the country.
You nailed it. And the government's going to get the tax revenue from our company. It's going to get the tax revenue from the interest payments that are received from the trust. These are typically set up as 10-year promissory notes, and every 10 years they can renew for 10 years. Typically 8% net of fees is the goal, depending on the risk tolerance. But in the meantime, the capital is deployed, and the greater study of macroeconomics states that the more money can flow and move more freely, the more it actually grows, right? It doesn't become stagnant like in a pond. The river flows and it's fresh, and it just creates new jobs, new opportunities, new growth, new tax revenue, right? So it's a win-win-win. So we don't think it's going to be, you never know what Congress could do, but in the meantime, 26 years, nothing's happened there. It's only just gotten better. The other threat I would say could be for those who don't know what they're doing, right? Or those that are going to abuse it, right? That's part of why it's like it's and actually David Young talks about this, like, why isn't this more well known? Why aren't people talking about it? And he goes, it's kind of the edge of two swords, or edge of a coin, where on one side it's like if it gets too popular or people take it and they abuse it, or they push the boundaries, the IRS can just be like, you know what, you guys are taking advantage of this, and we're just going to shut it down for everybody, right? And the other side is the competition, right? Not wanting people to compete, right, in a way that's going to also maybe take away from the trust, right? Take away from the integrity of it. So these are the things that we're monitoring. Although we work with thousands of CPAs, tax attorneys, financial advisors. So I don't want you to think that it's just like 3 people. Like literally, there's groups, national law firms we work with. There's CPAs that we work with. There's financial advisors across the country, commercial real estate operators, syndicators, cryptocurrency experts. Like we have all of it there. It's just you haven't heard of it because your CPA perhaps either hasn't heard of it or has never done one. And that's really the biggest thing, is just realizing that sometimes if you bring them in, they honestly 9 out of 10 say yes. But if you spring it on them the last moment, you ask them for their quick opinion, they're like, you can't blame them for saying no, because they're like, I don't know what I don't know. I've never done that surgery on that knee. I can't say to go to that surgeon and get your knee cut open.
They don't want to get stuck in a trip bag. But the other thing is, CPAs and attorneys and everybody, it's even like playing basketball. I mean, not everybody's going to be a center. Not everybody's going to be, an outside shooter. Your CPA might be doing the best job for you, but who has the time to go out and find all these other things? So if they can get educated from Brett's team, but I just want to stress the fact that what Brett said about stagnant capital, you can look at Europe, you could look at a bunch of different countries in Asia and everything else, and there's like a tremendous amount of wealth, but it's all bottled up in, very wealthy families, and it doesn't go anywhere. And the situation in the United States is that we have these type of vehicles that unleashes the capital and just makes everybody in the entire United States from top to bottom more wealthy. And, Canada is a similar situation, because I know we have to give a shout out to the Canucks up there with Adam.
Thank you. And, Brett, you mentioned you guys are growing pretty fast here too now. Just for feelers, I mean, are you guys currently hiring or looking for any other team members?
Yeah. So in regards to that, we are growing, and we are looking for new team members, right? And more strategic alliances. That kind of our mission statement is to have by the end of this year, 10 top Dream 100 kind of strategic alliances lined up, another 25 just general strategic alliances, and then have we want to be somewhere around $200 million of AUM and growing. So yeah, that's part of it. And part of that's, as a leader, you got to delegate, you got to train, you got to coach. And so we just kind of delegated the podcast to one of my junior associates, and then we're delegating some of the first calls that are coming in, because we have so many people calling us. So yeah, the answer is yes, Adam. We're definitely growing.
Oh, I'm glad I made the cut with the podcast with the man, Brett.
Of course. Oh, me on other people's shows, it's always a journey, right? Oh, and you got on mine too. You're right, Michael, when you're on the show. Right. Yeah, I couldn't sit you the junior there. I had to keep you on the starter there.
And then the other thing, Brett, so people can also contact you if they're commercial real estate brokers, and you can help them out with the EXP commercial then, correct?
Yeah, let me tell you about EXP commercial. So as excited as I am about the deferred sales trust, I'm like as excited about EXP commercial, because it's like an entrepreneur real estate company that allows us to build teams in a way that creates long-term loyalty and also passive cash flow. And so I was skeptical on the EXP stack 5 years ago. I was like, you know what? That seems kind of crazy. I'm in commercial. I'm in deferred sales trust. It was a residential place, and I said that sounds a little bit wild. I dismissed it, but it enables you to begin on the right side of the quadrant. And so about 2 years ago, I just joined. And you can get stock ownership as you sell. You can get cash flow, passive cash flow from agents that you train and coach and help them to sell. And it creates a model where there's more financial freedom, location freedom. It's a worldwide organization with over 80,000 commercial and residential agents, mostly residential at this point, but commercial is growing. Also, M&A advisors. We just signed up the top 10 M&A in the country advisor, Michelle Souther-Tucker. She's amazing. We're actually doing a $55 million deal in Florida right now for the Deferred Sales Trust. And so it creates this ecosystem of brokers, if you need to be real estate licensed or agents, to be able to have a lot of overhead, but also to build in a cloud environment where there's no bricks and mortar, and then have technology and innovation and culture and just so much leadership. They just bought the Success magazine. Jariq Robbins is Tony Robbins' son, who's helped running that. So it's like so many amazing leaders. So yeah, if you're interested in that, you can check. You can email me.
And a good friend of Adam's is Kyle Wilson, who was one of the original guys behind that.
Yeah. So, and if you're interested, you can email me, brett.swarts@expcommercial.com or brett@capitalgainstaxsolution.com to learn more.
And then there's one additional thing. You run a mastermind. So if people wanted to get in touch with you about that mastermind, how would they do that?
Yeah, capitalgainstaxsolution.com. It's a totally free mastermind. And it's basically like a deferred sales trust master class or mastermind where we bring on clients, we bring on people learning about it for the first time, CPAs, skeptics, people that are just wanting to know if this thing is real and how it works, and ask questions live with me and my team. And every Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 1 p.m. Eastern, you can join us. Just go to capitalgainstaxsolution.com. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're also live streaming if you're not quite ready to be on the Zoom with all of us. And then you can also check out our new book, Building a Tax-Deferred Exit Strategy. And we have some really smart people like Kevin Harrington from Shark Tank is in the book, which is pretty cool. And lots of other, and David Young has his entire chapter here, Overcoming False Beliefs of the Deferred Sales Trust. So we have lots of cool things. And really the goal of this book is to help you unlock your ideal wealth plan for yourself or your clients when selling any asset of any kind, and have a nice freedom and flexibility with the exit plan while deferring the capital gains tax. The last thing I'll touch on is estate tax, Michael and Adam. The other thing that we're solving for, it's not just capital gains tax on a stepped up basis, which the 1031 does, but it's the estate tax, which is 40%. 40%, right? Which is above and beyond. It has nothing to do with a 1031 or stepped up basis. If your net worth is greater than 22 million married or 12 million single, you're not facing just a capital gains tax. That's a tiger by the tail. You're facing a death tax of 40% above those amounts. And so what we can do with the Deferred Sales Trust, which is unique to nothing else that I know of, without buying insurance, without having to gift it all away to charity, you can exit an asset and move it outside your taxable estate in one day. In fact, we just did one for a client who sold a $5 million multifamily property in Colorado, who lived in California. And when they exited, we moved all of it outside their taxable estate, which is going to save 40%, which is $2 million immediately for their estate. And so that's the other thing you want to check out, is make sure you're looking at estate tax challenges, which will help you with as well.
That is super big. Just so that we can make sure it's in the show notes, the IRS code is what's the code again?
So this IRC 453, which is an installment sale. The other one I was talking about for the estate tax is something that's a little. It's not 453. That's proprietary, but that one can be unlimited. One of the biggest deals, a $100 million plus deal in San Diego, and that moves it outside the taxable estate. But yeah, if you just go to our website and schedule a time and sign the NDAs, we can walk through that particular strategy.
Yeah, well, again, Brett, as always, has blown my mind he's marrying to a certain extent the crypto worlds and the real estate worlds. And Brett is also going to be a speaker at the Blockchain Real Estate Summit in September 23rd and 24th in Austin, Texas. And he's going to be helping out because there's a lot of people that want to know. And one of the key things that I latched onto is when he was talking about people being able to sell their crypto and they just hit the button and it all executes. That's what we're really trying to do with blockchain real estate, so that when you've got these real estate funds, when you've got these real estate syndications and everything, It's just a matter of let's execute the trade. Boom, it goes through.
100%. If you have a fund or a real estate deal, not only that, we set up the trust, we exit into the trust, we go to the bank, and then from there it can go. I mean, this within about 7 days, if you had let's say 50 million of cryptocurrency, you can diversify all of that into commercial real estate syndications, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, hard money lending, even just keep some in the bank too to go back and buy crypto at a low. And it's just clicks of a button as we set everything up, rather than having to wait for the escrow and closing and due diligence. And I mean, you do all that up front to due diligence on us, but the ability, the speed of which you can raise capital and deploy capital into new ventures, all tax deferred, to us is the number one opportunity that's open for commercial real estate investors and owners and operators, and then also cryptocurrency investors who want to diversify a bit and get into commercial real estate.
And that's why Adam and I are really excited about security tokens, because security tokens will take syndication shares and make them tradable like cryptocurrency.
Incredible. Absolutely. Yeah. And for more information briefly on, security tokens as well, Michael, our listeners can go to libertyfund.io, correct?
They can go to libertyfund.io and get our special report, and that's blockchain real estate. And then there's a bunch of fantastic articles. There's a bunch of fantastic videos and everything else that talks a little bit about the coming changes to commercial real estate and real estate investing in real estate syndications and funds.
Love it. Love it. And Brett, it's capitalgainstaxsolutions.com.
Perfect.
Awesome. Well, Brett, thank you for investing your most valuable resource with us here today, your time, our listeners and viewers, for you guys as well. Thank you for hanging out with us here today on the Nothing But Net podcast, the podcast for commercial triple net real estate investing. I'm your host, Adam Carswell. Again, joined by our co-host, as always, Michael Flight, CEO of libertyfund.io and the founder of Capital Gains Tax Solutions, Brett Swarts. Thank you for tuning in, and we will catch you in the next episode.